Hey, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and in this video I'm reviewing an Audi R8 V10 Spyder. So listen up, back in 2003, Audi shocked everyone when they released the concept version of the Audi R8. It was so far away from what Audi was doing at the time, but they wanted to be taken seriously. A couple years later, in 2006, Audi debuted the R8, looking not much different than what it looked like in its concept form, and in my opinion, it became an instant poster car. Internally codenamed Type 42, Audi threw the kitchen sink at this first generation of the R8. I'm talking lightweight materials all over the construction of this car, powerful, naturally aspirated V8 and V10 engines, and drop-dead gorgeous styling. But this first generation is almost 15 years old. It has a 15-year-old design. It has 15-year-old horsepower. It has 15-year-old technology. So the question I'm asking myself is, has this car stood up to the test of time and continues to remain relevant in today's ultra-competitive sports car exotic market? I'm going to share my thoughts in this review of the Audi R8 V10 Spyder. All right, let's go. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, so let's start the review off by talking about the exterior design. But one quick question I asked at the outset of the video was, does this design stand up to the test of time? And I think for me it's a resounding yes. It looks absolutely stunning. It is one of the cleanest, classiest design sports cars or exotic cars that I've seen in person. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this car will look good into the future and basically forever. This is going to be a classic, something that people are going to desire 20, 30, 40 years from now. Now, as far as some of the details go, let's start off with the hood. It doesn't have anything special as far as any venting or cutting, but it does have the Audi logo mounted on it. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because this is a differentiating piece. Audi does not do this across all of its models. It's only in the R8 and the Audi TT. Typically what you see is this is mounted here in the center grille portion. So speaking of the center grille, in 2012, Audi gave the first generation of the R8 a refresh, where they changed the headlights and the tail lights, and part of that was the center grille. This one you see here is all blacked out as a part of the carbon package, and it looks really good. It gives the Audi R8 a very menacing look, although I have to admit, per California regulations, you do have to mount a front license plate like this car does. It kind of ruins the whole look. But anyway, let me step back here and let me talk about these headlights. Now, Audi's game is very strong in the headlight and taillight department. In fact, the Audi R8 is the first car to have LED running lights and headlights and also taillights. Now, the headlight design is actually very sleek, very clean. The running lamp is refreshed and it looks really good. Coming down further, you have three areas that are allowing in air. They're all functional. They're going to cool the brakes and other radiators for the engine in the back. And then to wrap up the front bumper, you have a very small, almost undetectable splitter here that does not stick out. It does not provide any issues with ground clearance, but I'm sure Audi has a function for it. It looks good and it's very, very subtle. All right, now moving on to the trunk or the frunk, and because the Audi R8 engine is in the back, the trunk space is in the front. So there's two ways of opening this trunk. There's a button on the interior and then there's a button on the key. There is no comfort access. You have to take the key out of your pocket in order to open the trunk. So there's a specific button here. You push that and opens the trunk. There is a latch you have to use and opens up a, I don't know, it's a fair amount of space. I would call it average or less than average. You can probably fit one medium size luggage piece in here, and or maybe just two duffel bags. I could see this becoming an issue if you're a heavy packer and you want to go on a weekend getaway and just take this car, because the inside doesn't really have a lot of storage either. But overall, you can see here that the trunk, or the hood lid, the front lid, is actually very big. It lifts off basically the entire front end of the car, and then the trunk space opening is much smaller than what you would expect. But now let's go ahead and close it. There's a the hood latch you can grab onto and close it. You do have to push it down for it to slam shut, and that's the trunk space in the Audi R8. All right, so now you're looking at the side profile of the Audi R8, and from this angle, it is such a good looking car. It highlights the convertible top so well. I think Audi has done a great job designing the Spyder version, or the convertible version of a coupe car. Now, as far as the engine layout goes, it is a mid-engine layout, and the weight distribution is rear bias. It's 43 to 57. Now, that's not really surprising. One thing that's opposite is the cabin layout. The cabin is forward bias. You'll notice that it is mounted much closer to the front wheels than it is to the back wheels, and Audi did that on purpose to highlight the mid-engine layout of the R8. All right, now let's talk about the convertible top. You push a button on the interior and it takes 19 seconds for it to open and to close back up. You can operate it up to 31 miles an hour. Now, two things I noticed about this top. First thing is that 19 seconds sounds like it's a short period of time, but it feels like a long period of time. And I was sitting here and I got the button pushed down and I'm just waiting and waiting. And I'm like, oh wow, this thing is still operating. It just felt like a long period of time, at least to me it did. Now, the second thing is that there isn't the ability to open and close the convertible top from outside the car. Now, I noticed this first in the BMW Z4 M40i. You had the ability to hold down a button and the convertible top would open and close while you're outside the car. Now, this being an older generation car, this technology wasn't really available. So there is a aftermarket solution to this. There's a company called Smart Mod or Smart Top that makes this capability available in the first generation of the R8. You can go ahead and check out their website. They make them for all brands of cars. All right, now the wheels, tires, and brakes for the R8 Spyder. Starting off with the wheels. These are 19 by 8.5 up front and 19 by 11 in the rear. They've got a really nice finish to them, silver gunmetalish, so I like them a lot. Now, as far as the tire goes, 235 section up front, 295 in the rear. Now, the owner of this car has upped the rear tires to a section 305, and they look and fit totally fine. Now, moving inside the wheelbarrow, you have a little bit more advancement and something to talk about here. Let's talk about the simple things first. 14.4-inch rotor in the front, 14-inch in the rear, 8-piston brake caliper in the front, 4-piston brake caliper in the rear. The caliper itself is painted in black and it's got the R8 logo on it, which looks really nice. Now, the cool thing is the brake disc itself has a waved design, so it's got a waffle cone looking design. I actually think it looks really cool. It's also functional. It weighs 4.4 pounds less than a traditional circular brake disc. Now, you can get carbon ceramic brake disc on this car as well, but I personally would skip them because these brakes are plenty powerful enough. All right, so now let's talk about the engine details, but before doing that, some differences back here as far as the hood goes. Now, in the coupe version, you have a glass engine cover. Because this is a Spyder, you lose that. Instead, you get this waterfall style heat extractor and hood scoop, which looks cool, but in my opinion, you can't replace a glass engine cover. That is the coolest thing as far as a hood goes. Now, the hood itself on this car is actually much smaller than you would get in the coupe as well. This is pretty much all you get here. It's quite a small piece and it's very restrictive as far as seeing the engine. You kind of got to crouch down to see it. And about the engine, this is a V10 5.2 liter naturally aspirated monster, making 525 horsepower and 391 pounds-feet of torque. It has a 8,700 RPM redline, which screams when you get on it, and you'll hear that here in a second. But as far as the transmission goes, you have a 6-speed gated manual shifter, which this car unfortunately does not have. This has the 7-speed double clutch transmission. Now, as a part of that 2012 refresh, Audi moved away from a single clutch sequential manual gearbox to this double clutch unit. And as I will demonstrate during the driving portion of the review, this double clutch is actually spot on. Very nice transmission. As far as performance numbers goes, 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds with the DCT and 4.1 seconds with the manual. Now, this is of course a all-wheel drive system, and Audi configures it or tunes it to be rear bias. So in natural or normal driving positions, it is a 15 to 85 front to rear split. Now, if it detects some slip and all that stuff, it has the ability to transfer up to 30% to the front and leave 70 to the rear. Now, as far as gas mileage goes, it's 13 in the city, 22 on the highway for a combined average of 16. Not bad for a naturally aspirated engine with over 500 horsepower, but the sound that this car makes is what really sells it. Now, this engine or this exhaust has been modified. It has an aftermarket exhaust from IPE. So take a listen to what this thing sounds like. All right, now let's close off the exterior design by talking about the rear end. And like the front and the side profile, I also maintain that the rear end of the R8 Spyder looks really nice. Now, a couple notable things. I'm not going to spend too much time back here. There's an electronic rear spoiler here. You can lift this up using a button on the interior. And then coming to the taillights, this was a refresh as a part of the 2020 model year. They look really, really cool during the day and even cooler at night. When you look at them up top, they've got this 3D looking aspect to them. When you look at them at field level, they look just as cool. Now let me crouch down here for a second and talk about these heat extractor vents on both sides. They're taking heat out from the engine bay and giving the R8 a cool looking design. And now let's come down to the modified exhaust. Like I said, this is the IPE aftermarket exhaust. The tips actually remain the same as what you see in the stock form. They're absolutely humongous. The mufflers inside of them are smaller, so these are essentially fake tips. But as far as tip size go, I thought the Nissan GT-R and the Shelby GT500 had the biggest exhaust tips, but now those have been overtaken by the size of the exhaust tips in this Audi R8. I mean, these are absolutely humongous exhaust tips. You can easily fit a softball in these things. So that covers the rear end design. Like I said, I really like it a lot. The overall design of the R8 is very classic, very fundamental, and will look good for a really long time. All right, so now the interior portion of the R8 review, and starting off with the seat. Now, this is an extremely comfortable seat. It does not have any aggression to it as far as side bolstering and thigh bolstering to hold you in place and such. It does hold you in place, but the bolstering is not aggressive and it is not adjustable. So you get a fixed seat, but it is comfortable. It is on the average at best side as far as aggressiveness, but an A+ as far as comfort goes. Now, you do have all the other adjustments that you get in a normal seat as well. Next, let's move to the steering wheel. So the steering wheel is a flat bottom design. It is a nice size as far as diameter goes. You do have paddle shifters that actually have a really cool design. I like them a lot. You don't have multiple multi-control buttons. Remember, this is a 2015 model year car that was designed sometime in like 2004 or 2005. So these things weren't coming along as they are, or they're not as prevalent as they are nowadays. You see multi-control buttons and infotainment screens in even economical cars. Next, let's move to the gauge cluster, and you see here more of a traditionalist design, 2 analog gauges with a very remedial screen, giving you small amount of information. Nothing really exciting here. It's just all down to business. You have a 8,700 RPM tachometer and a 220 mile per hour speedometer. Now, I remember the Hellcat Red Eye that I drove had a 220 mile per hour speedometer, and the Shelby GT 500, the most recent one, also has a 220 mile per hour speedometer. So I'm seeing more of this 220 mile for some reason. 200 miles an hour in a speedometer is absolutely crazy. The top speed for this car is actually 193, so I'm not sure why Audi is going 220 there. But anyway, it's just something to point out. Next, let's come over to the infotainment area, and this is where it's showing the most age. It's a very small screen. It is not touch screen. You have to use it operating buttons. It's not very intuitive. It doesn't have a lot of information in it. Actually, the only screen that I find myself getting used to or using was just the AM FM radio. I didn't go into the nav. It is kind of old and slow. It doesn't have the greatest interface, so that is a shortcoming. Now, coming down to the gear shifter here, it's unfortunate that this is not a 6-speed manual gated shifter, but Audi did a good job in kind of giving you a sense of what that might feel like when you switch this thing from neutral to reverse and to automatic, and it clinks or it hits against the surface area here. It does sound like you're getting that gated manual shifter sound. Take a listen really quickly. So for me, that's just an added bonus. Now, as far as the operation of the shifter goes, you start off in neutral, foot on the brake, you move it to the left, you have to click it to where it says A, that puts you in automatic mode, and then you click it once more to the left, or you use the up and the down shift pattern here to put you in manual shifting mode. If you want to go back into neutral, you push it all the way back to the right, and if you want to go in reverse, you push it all the way to the right and down. So this is a really interesting layout. I'm typically used to reverse being all the way to the left and up. This is actually down and to the right. Now, all the way behind me, there's a difference here between the coupe and the convertible format. In the coupe, there's some space back here where you can put your things. There's like a little ledge style area, but the convertible loses that because the convertible actually gets stored back there when it's open. Instead, you get these 2 little cubby holes, which you can use to lock using your key. There's actually a pretty decent amount of space back here. And in this bottom storage compartment, you see something that you never see, a CD changer. Gosh, it's probably been, I don't know, about 5, maybe even 10 years since I've seen a CD changer, and you've got one here in this Audi R8 Spyder. But overall, on the interior, I like it a lot. It's very clean, very simple, very easy to get used to. Everything is easy to reach. The size is good, considering that this is a 2-door exotic sports car, so that's always an added bonus where you can feel comfortable on the interior. As far as the datedness go, or it showing its age, yes, you're going to get that because this car was designed probably 10 or 15 years ago as far as the interior and the interior technology. But what saves it is that it was designed with a simple format. That's what prevents it from looking too old, in my opinion at least. Again, like I said, I like the interior. Now, let's go to the driving portion of the review. All right, so now the driving portion of the review. But before getting started, as always, this is what the key looks like. Just a regular Audi key, no indication that this is an R8 or a $100,000 plus car. Interesting thing, it's with a actual key. You got to put it in the ignition and turn it on yourself. There is no push button start, so that's something you got to get used to. And the owner has actually modified the exhaust. As I mentioned, this is the IPE InnoTech exhaust, and it's got a remote for on and off capabilities right there, and it sounds absolutely amazing. You're going to get a glimpse of it here in a second. But as far as visibility goes, it's absolutely perfect. I can see everything out in front of me. I don't even feel like there's a hood in front of me, because remember in the earlier portion of the video I mentioned how this seat is forward bias, and you really see it here. There's absolutely no issues looking out the front. Out the side is also the same. Even with the convertible top up, it's the same. I do not have blind spot monitoring in this car, but I do have front and rear parking sensors. I also have a rear view camera, which the resolution is not really acceptable. The screen is not really that great, so it's there because it's functionally there. It's not the crispest, it's not the best resolution. It works. So as far as prices go, for the Spyder version of this in the used car market with the 10-cylinder, it depends on how many miles, of course, but if you want something in a good condition, I suppose they're around the $90,000 to $100,000 range, and of course the ones with the 6-speed gated shifter will command a higher premium because those are just more desirable. Anyway, that's enough talking. Now let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a drive. All right, so keys out, flip it out that way. That's pretty cool. Foot on the brake, ignition. Something about a 10-cylinder engine, it always sounds good. So let's go ahead. Always put your seatbelt on. Okay, here we go. This car coming. Actually, I'm in neutral. Let me put it in A. And before getting going, well, as I'm getting going, actually, so let me talk to you about the expectation or the comfort of this car. Typically, what I've seen is, or what I've read is, oh, this is an everyday driver car. Yes, it's comfortable, as I'll talk about here in a second, but it is definitely not a luxury car. It is stiff. The suspension is set up pretty stiff. So have your expectations checked there. All right, now I'm gonna come out to a straight stretch low. Let me go ahead and turn the exhaust on. Let me put it in sport. I don't know if you could tell when the exhaust opens up, but let's hear what it sounds like. Foot on the floor. Woo! Oh my God! Woo! Jeez! This exhaust is unbelievable. Ooh. It just makes you want to laugh. Oh my gosh. All right, I gotta go back in the same direction. That was unreal. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear the exhaust and how amazing it sounds. All right, let's go. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, this is a genuine smile. I am not kidding. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow, that's addicting. Guys, if you've never driven a 10-cylinder car, there's nothing like a 10-cylinder car with a modified exhaust. 8,700. I really hope the audio is coming through nicely, because this sounds absolutely unreal. So As far as the power goes, the power is just ludicrous. This is so fast, and the fact that you have an 8,700 RPM red line just takes it even further over the top. Now, as far as the transmission, this is absolutely spot on, and I cannot imagine this being dictated or called as, oh, this is a 8, 9, 10-year-old transmission, because it works just like anything that you would expect new from 2020 or 2021. The upshifts and the downshifts, the pops, oh wow, it's just stunning. The engine noise and this engine is a banshee. With the exhaust, it's an eargasm to the nth level. As far as the comfort goes, like I said, this is a very comfortable seat, but the suspension is actually very stiff. This is not a comfortable riding car to where you can just say, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and ride it like a Cadillac. Do not have that expectation, because you will be disappointed. The suspension is set up pretty stiff. Let me take it out of sport mode and drive normally. So yeah, the suspension is okay. You can still daily drive it, but don't expect it to be extremely comfortable. I'm in here and I'm kind of like bouncing around as I'm driving through uneven pavement. It doesn't soak it up very well, and I'm not even in the sports setting of the adaptive suspension. Now, as far as the steering goes, I can't drive it like a crazy person on a track in the city, but I did drive it off camera, and it does feel very neutral. This has hydraulic steering, so it gives you great feedback. It doesn't have an artificial feeling. It doesn't get too weighty. It is not adjustable, so whatever you see or whatever you feel is what you get, which is spot on. I like it a lot. Now, as far as the daily drivability of the, before I move on, the brakes are also very good. There is good bite right at the top of the pedal, so there is good feedback there. You don't have to absolutely mash it in order to get good braking power or good feedback. Now, as far as the daily drivability of this car, the gas mileage sucks. It's not very good, especially if you're driving in the city. I believe it's in the teens. It's 12 or 13 in the city, so it's not good if that's what you're expecting. But as far as storage space, it's also not the best. But with the convertible top opening and giving you this open air experience, I think it's a fantastic car to drive. And otherwise, even with the top up, this is actually a relatively good cabin. It's decently spacious. In other cars, like the 911 that I drove, it kind of feels a little bit smaller than this on the interior. This feels pretty spacious, pretty roomy, more than enough for me to sit next to somebody and feel comfortable. Again, this is a decent daily driver car. Is it the best daily driver as far as in this segment? I think the newer cars have better suspensions, adaptive suspensions that soak up the bumps and all the other things that you see in uneven pavement better. So I think some of the newer cars are better to daily drive. But this is a through and through sports car. You will feel like you're driving a sports car in here, and there's nothing better than driving a sports car, in my opinion, especially on a day-to-day basis. And when you've got a IPE exhaust that sounds like an absolute maniac and an open top experience, the only thing that's missing in this car is a 6-speed manual. So let's hear the exhaust again. Forgot to put sport mode on. The exhaust sounds unreal, and I hope the wind noise is not coming through too badly and you can hear the exhaust, because this thing sounds insane. Insane. Anyway, is this a good car? Yes, this is a unbelievably amazing car. Even at 100K, I think I would absolutely buy this if it had a 6-speed manual. Even in this DCT, it's a good car as well. It gives you a good, pleasurable driving experience. There's definitely character in this car, especially with the exhaust mod and the V10 behind you. But if you have any other questions that I haven't answered, please leave them in the comments below or send me a DM at Drive Steady. But otherwise, thanks for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.